Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be planting out my sweet potato slips, so come along with me. Let's talk about sweet potatoes. Hey guys, okay, so today I'm going to be planting my sweet potato slips out into the garden. I want to take you along and show you how I take those from off of the sweet potato that has been growing these slips in my windowsill for several months now and get them into my garden bed. Okay, so first let's talk about sweet potato slips as a plant and what their growing requirements are. So oh no. Okay, so first of all, sweet potatoes are a tropical plant. They grow great in like Central America and South America. They really love hot weather because that is where they originated from. It's in a very hot climate. Okay, so I cannot stress enough that sweet potatoes really love for the soil to be warm and for it to be really warm outside. Okay, they thrive in the heat. With that being said, your soil needs to be at least 60 degrees before you plant out your sweet potato slips. 60 to 80 degrees, the warmer the better. So for me personally, I am here in East Tennessee, zone 7, and what I usually do is mid-April is when I plant my tomatoes. I wait another week or two and then I plant out my sweet potatoes after my tomatoes. And that way I just know it's really nice, it's really warm, they're going to thrive. So the soil needs to be really warm and the air temperature needs to be pretty consistently warm. Definitely not down below 45 degrees. They are not going to do well at all. They cannot survive a frost. So ideally you want your air temperatures to have leveled out and be steady around 60 to 80 degrees. They can tolerate up to 95, even 100 degrees in temps, but they cannot tolerate any cold, and especially not a frost. Okay, so sweet potatoes slips are easy to grow from a sweet potato. Several years ago when I first moved here and put in this garden, I went to the store, bought organic sweet potatoes, and I propagated my first set of sweet potato slips from that one bag, probably $4 or $5 bag of organic sweet potatoes. I have a video, super short, 3 or 4 minutes, from back in February, I believe, showing you how I propagate my sweet potato slips. Is pretty easy. You just take your sweet potato, you put some toothpicks around the middle of it, you submerge it half in water. I use mason jars, and I'll try to remember and put in a picture of what that looks like here in a minute. And then you just let it sit and soak in water. You change the water once a week. It takes a long time, so you have to be patient, but eventually roots will begin to grow out of the bottom of the sweet potato, and then at the top of the sweet potato you will start to see little sprouts come out, and then sweet potato vines will begin to grow. So that is, and then you'll let your sweet potato vines, slips, whatever you want to call them, grow. One potato can put off anywhere from 8, 10, 20 slips, and even if you cut off some slips, if you keep it in the water and it's rooted well in the water, it will continue to grow more slips. So that was several years ago. I spent $5 on those original potatoes. I grew my own slips. I planted my slips out. Since then I've grown many harvests of sweet potatoes from that. Sweet potatoes are really easy to overwinter inside. You don't need root cell or anything. They are a lot hardier than a regular potato. They just last a lot longer before they start to go bad. So they're pretty easy to harvest in the fall, keep all winter, and then in February they're usually still good. In February I go through, I pick out some sweet potatoes from last year's harvest, and I propagate those slips, put those in the windowsill to grow slips, and so I have a reoccurring supply of sweet potatoes year after year, all from that first time when I went out and bought the organic sweet potatoes. So I say that to tell you this can save you a lot of money, because last time I was at our local big box garden center for a 6-pack of sweet potato slips was $6. That's only 6 plants. That's not going to grow you very many sweet potatoes at all. I spent like $4 or $5 on a bag several years ago. Got an unlimited harvest. I've probably grown hundreds of pounds of sweet potatoes from that first $4 or $5 that I spent a long time ago. So this is going to save you a lot of money in the garden, especially if you love sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes homegrown are just so good. So give this a try, okay? So now let's get into what to do with your potatoes once it's grown the slips. So here's the tricky part to this video. I actually recorded it yesterday, the cicadas. When I went inside to edit my video, the cicadas were so loud that you cannot even hear what I was saying. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I'm going to put in a little piece of that clip here. And I just want to apologize ahead of time for the cicada sounds, because the problem with this whole thing is I've already cut the sweet potato slips off of my potatoes, so I can't show you again right now while it's quiet. So please be gracious and endure the loud cicada sounds and listen to this little clip, and then we'll come back here and we will finish talking some more while it's quiet. And one more thing before you watch this really loud cicada filled video, I want to show you the two things, well, the one most important thing that I'm using today, and that is I will be using a take root. I bought this, I believe, at Lowe's or from Amazon. You can get this just about anywhere. It's really cheap. I use this to propagate herbs a lot too, like perennial herbs when I want to plant those out somewhere else or gift some to somebody else. So, and also if I'm going to propagate some of my tomato cuttings from tomatoes that I already have, I use this for that too. So this is really handy to have on hand. You'll see me dipping the sweet potato vines in this. I just thought I'd show you that up close. It's called Garden Safe Take Root. Okay, I'm also going to have a pair of scissors handy so I can cut these off. And you're going to want to have warm and well draining, rich soil to plant these in. And just one last reminder, your soil needs to be at a minimum of 60 degrees before you plant those sweet potato slips out. Okay, go watch the second part of this video and then I'll be right back. Okay, so obviously the first thing you're going to need is your sweet potato with slips growing on it. They do not have to be this long before you transplant them, but since these are really long, we will be able to cut this one vine into several pieces and root several pieces of sweet potato from it. So what we are going to do is I'm going to take this vine, and right below where there is a leaf, I will snip it off just like that. Okay, so there's actually little root nodules already getting ready to form. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. They're right in there. The camera doesn't like to focus in well on stuff like this, but okay, they're right in there. So I'm going to remove this little extra vine, and then I'm going to dip this stem into the rooting hormone. That's going to encourage root growth where there's already some roots getting ready to grow there. I'm going to dip it in my rooting hormone, and then I'm just going to place this into about 2 inches into the soil and give it a good water every day, and over the next week it will grow roots and I will have sweet potato slips growing in this new bed. Okay, so here is my little root. I'm just going to be dipping it in there. I want to get really good coverage. Just dipping it in, dipping it in. Okay, it looks like that. And then let me take you over here and I'll show you how I just plant it into my raised bed. So here we have the raised bed that I'm going to be planting this in. I am going to be planting about 15 slips in here. The beauty of growing in a raised bed is you can really plant a lot closer together. So I'm just going to start right here in the middle, and I'm just going to make a little hole here. I want to place that in there, firmly cover it up. And there you have it. I'll come back and water this little guy. Okay guys, there was one. Let's cut the rest of these off, okay? So we still have these long vines. I'm going to come down and find some more nodules like right here. I want to cut these 2 vines below that. Do that. So I have those, and you can see the little root nodules on it right here. I'll dip these in. I'm going to go ahead and just cut all my slips and then dip them all at once and then transplant. Okay, so here is my little pile of sweet potato plants. I'm going to be planting about three going this way. This is a 3-foot by 5-foot bed. I'm basically going to be planting them out with about 1 square foot of space per each plant. So I will just be going along, dipping each one of these in the root hormone, planting one here, one here, one here. I'll come back and I will just continue to do that. Okay, let's dip. Make sure that we get plenty of our rooting hormone in there. Okay. And then I'm just going to come over here and plop it in the soil. Okay. This little guy is already rooted pretty well, but I'm still going to go ahead and dip those roots gently into that. I'll dig us a little hole here. I'll sort of lay his little roots in there and cover him up. Here is the bed planted out with those sweet potatoes, and there's also some bush beans growing in the back, well, all the way around the edges here. So ignore those are not the sweet potatoes. But down here are our sweet potato slips. I did plant them in here, pretty densely, but that is the beauty of having raised beds, is that you can really grow so much more in a small space. Okay, if you endured the really loud cicada video there, thank you so much for sticking around. Okay, this is what the bed looks like now. This is day 2. This is what it looks like where they are planted out. Those will take root. It'll take about a week. They will grow roots, and sweet potatoes have a very long harvest date. There are some really short varieties that I think are about 90 days, which is still a long time. But normally they are 120 to 150 days, depending on what type of sweet potato you plant. I believe that these are a minimum of 120, but realistically, I usually do not harvest them until around 130 to 140 days. So I will not be harvesting these until fall, basically, or really late summer, fall. So since they're going to be in this bed for so long, taking up space around the edges, and I'll show you this up close here in a minute, but I have bush beans already planted. Those are starting to grow, so I'll get a little harvest of bush beans. They are planted around the entire edge of this bed. And then I have also, yesterday after I got the slips in, I went around and right in the middle in a circle I planted pole beans. I planted an heirloom variety Blue Lake pole beans. I do this every single year. I interplant bush beans, pole beans, and sweet potato slips together, just so I feel like I'm getting more use out of my space, because sweet potatoes take up so much time in the garden. So I will come back and I'll put a bean TP. Sorry, let me readjust here. I will come back and I'll put a bean TP right here in the middle, and the pole beans will grow that. And as my sweet potato vines really take off and really start to grow and overtake this bed, they may start to climb the TP as well. But what I have noticed is they do not interfere with each other, and this just has been a really great way for me to get the most use of my space in my sweet potato beds. And those pole beans, even though they do take longer to come to harvest than the bush beans will, they will still be done. they will have put on all the beans they're going to put on long before the sweet potatoes are ready to harvest. So the bush beans will grow, I'll harvest those. The pole beans will grow, they'll take a little bit longer. I will get several harvests from them into late summer. And then, when it is finally time to pull my sweet potatoes, I will just remove the teepee, pull up the bean vines as well, and harvest the sweet potatoes. And nothing will be competing for each other in their harvest time or in their space. This has worked out well for me every year. This is how I plant my sweet potatoes, and it does great. So just throw that idea out there for you for interplanting pole beans and sweet potatoes and bush beans and such as that. Okay, so that is how I plant my sweet potato slips. Another side note is I always use the rooting agent and put it in soil. However, you do not have to do that. You can cut the slips directly off of the potato, the mother potato, and you can take those slips and you can just place them in water so that about that much of the stem on each one that you have cut off, each sweet potato slip stem, about that much of it is submerged in water, and let those sit in your windowsill in the water for about a week. They will grow roots, and then you can plant them out in your garden that way as well. So that also works. You don't have to have the rooting agent. I'm usually just either out of space, and so everything's being pushed really close together when I harvest and when I plant the next thing. I had carrots in this bed, and it was really nice to harvest those carrots, because when I pulled all those up, that loosened up my soil though, and so to come back just a few days later and plant the sweet potatoes was really nice, because this bed is already, all the soil's loosened up without me actually having to till it or anything of that nature. And I try to always do that, just as a secondary tip, is I try to keep something rotating so and ready, so if I know that a harvest is going to come up in 2 or 3 weeks, ready to pull it out of a bed, I will go ahead and start some seeds in a seed tray so that I can have some plants to plant out immediately back into that bed. This cuts down on weeds, it cuts down on your growing time, especially when you're becoming to the end of the season and you really are feeling the pinch of like, oh, I need to hurry and get as much grown as I can before the first frost comes or something of that nature. If you go ahead and have seeds waiting and in the backup, then you're going to really get a lot in your growing time, okay? And I just mean before, from your last frost to your first frost, whatever your growing window there is to grow. So, thanks for hanging out with me today. Thanks for enduring the loud cicada video. And we'll have more videos coming soon. If you haven't yet, I would love it if you would like and subscribe. Hang out with us over on Instagram at @the_heirloom gardener. Check us out on Facebook at the heirloom gardener. And of course, here for more videos. Thanks, guys, and have a blessed day.